Hey, lore lovers! And if you're in the United States, happy Thanksgiving! I have a special tale to tell you today.
Are you finally talking about the mysterious Rhino-Moose that wanders the wilds of southern Canada?
What? No, there's no such thing as a Rhino-Moose.
Oh yes, there is. If there wasn't, I would look pretty ridiculous with a tattoo of one on my...
Whoa, nobody wants to see that. When did you get a tattoo?
while you were in the hospital. I also joined this exclusive group that sells jams and jellies to fund for our salvation to the moon Titan. And there we will spend eternity with the glorious leader.
You joined a cult?
No, they assured me it wasn't a cult. Would somebody in a cult lie?
Yes! Yes, they would!
They said it's not, though.
We have a few things we need to talk about, and none of that's in today's video.
That's good, because I really need to sell my share of jams and jellies. And hoping I can when everybody comes over for Thanksgiving dinner. Otherwise, I can't see the wonderful leader.
I can't believe you joined a cult. Really?
See, this is what happens when you leave me alone for a week.
I was in the hospital.
Yeah, you were, and look at this face! I'm so thankful I don't look like that.
I was thankful to be home, but now I'm not so sure.
What? Why? Was I pushing the jams and jellies too hard? I was hoping to just casually slide it into conversation and make you want them.
No, I don't want any of your jams and jellies. And I'm getting you out of that cult.
Thanks, Tara. I don't know what I would do without you.
Well, while you're thanking me, I'm going to segue back into today's video. The first Thanksgiving!
We don't need to hear about that. We just need to remember the saying, in 1492, the Pilgrims sailed the ocean blue.
That's for Columbus, buddy. The first Thanksgiving wasn't until 1621.
What took so long for the Pilgrims to have a Thanksgiving dinner if they arrived in 1492?
No, again, that was Columbus. The Pilgrims didn't arrive until 1620. You see, this dates back all the way to September of 1620. The small ship, the Mayflower, left Plymouth, England, carrying 102 passengers. The Pilgrims were comprised of religious separatists who wanted a new home where they could be free from religious persecution. And there were others too who just wanted land of their own and to be free in their own right. The crossing was abysmal and took 66 days. Originally, they had hoped to land in the Hudson Bay. However, they veered off course and ended up at the tip of Cape Cod. 1 month later, they crossed into the Massachusetts Bay, where they would eventually establish their village of Plymouth. The Pilgrims suffered a brutal winter and spent it aboard the Mayflower. While on the ship, waiting out the winter, several got scurvy, suffered from exposure, and died from contagious diseases. Only half of the crew of 102 actually survived this winter. And in March 1621, they finally left the Mayflower to see their new home. And upon leaving, do you know what greeted them?
A man trying to tell them about their extended warranty and how it's about to expire on their ship.
What? No, this isn't 2020. A Native American from the Abenaki tribe greeted them, and he knew English. He left the Pilgrims a few days later and returned with Squanto, a member of the Pawtucket tribe. Squanto had been kidnapped by an English sea captain and sold into slavery. Once in London, though, he managed to escape and boarded passage as part of an exploratory expedition to the New World, and he returned home soon after. Weakened from the winter and depleting supplies, the Pilgrims learned from Squanto. The Native American taught them how to cultivate corn, extract sap from maple trees, fish from local rivers, and avoid poisonous plants.
Wow, You'd think if you were going to travel to a whole new place and not be able to return back home, you would at least pick up some basic survival skills.
Squanto also helped the Pilgrims form an alliance with the local Wampanoag tribe. The alliance lasted more than 50 years. Sadly, this alliance is one of the only examples of peace and harmony between Native Americans and European colonists.
Just goes to show, if you want a European to be nice to you, make sure they're half frozen to death and starved and riddled with disease.
Now, the first Thanksgiving was in that year, November 1621, and it was to celebrate the bountiful harvest they had. The governor of Plymouth invited the Wampanoag tribe to celebrate with them, because if it wasn't for them, none of them would have survived. Now, this is the first Thanksgiving. Most likely there wasn't any pies or other desserts associated with today's Thanksgiving, as the Pilgrim supply of sugar was either depleted or on the brink of doing so. And we don't even know if there was even a turkey involved during this first Thanksgiving. And the second Thanksgiving took place 2 years later in 1623. This one was to celebrate overcoming a drought that almost wiped out all of their crops. During the American Revolution, the Continental Congress designated one or more days, depending on where you were, for days of Thanksgiving. And in 1789, George Washington issued the first Thanksgiving to commemorate and celebrate the defeat of the British during the Revolutionary War. John Adams and James Madison, Washington's successors, also designated days of thanks during their presidencies. In 1817, New York and other states finally ratified Thanksgiving as an annual holiday. However, depending on what state you were in, depended on what day you actually celebrated it. And this was also mostly in the northern states. The South didn't really understand or acknowledge Thanksgiving as an actual holiday.
Well, yeah. Can you imagine going around asking your slaves what they're thankful for? That would be an awkward conversation I'm positive none of the slave owners wanted.
Fun fact, did you know there was a mother of Thanksgiving? No? Yeah, not many do. But there was. Her name was Sarah Josepha Hale. You might not recognize her name, but you probably know her work. She wrote several things during her lifetime, including nursery rhymes like Mary Had a Little Lamb. Starting in 1827, she advocated for Thanksgiving to be a national holiday. And this lasted for 36 years. Because of her never-ending push, she was dubbed the Mother of Thanksgiving. Abraham Lincoln finally granted this request during the height of the Civil War in 1863. And he made it as the final Thursday in November. And this stayed the norm for 76 years. This changed, however, when Franklin Roosevelt changed it to the third Thursday of November instead. He wanted to boost retail sales during the Christmas season and wanted to give people an extra week to shop during the Great Depression in 1939. So many people were against this that during this time, it was called Franksgiving if you celebrated it on the third Thursday of November. And this lasted for 3 years, until finally Roosevelt caved to the social pressures and changed it back to the fourth Thursday of every November.
You know, about 10 years ago, my coworkers and I wanted a potluck. And our boss said we could only have one if there was a holiday to celebrate. So, we came up with Franksgiving. And this was a major holiday. It was when hot dogs were officially brought to the New World 500 years ago. And it's celebrated on the third Tuesday of every January. After our boss approved the potluck, and in the middle of us celebrating it, he actually Googled it to see if it was real. Unfortunately, we found her Franksgiving and not our new Franksgiving, which is so much better. And he thought it was funny that we made up a holiday just for a potluck. That just so happened to be hot dog, sausages, and bratwurst themed to celebrate Thanksgiving.
That's it. New holiday. We're celebrating your version of Thanksgiving in January. Who's with me? Let me know in the comments down below. There's a lot of controversy revolving around and behind Thanksgiving. Some of it trivial, like what was actually eaten at the first Thanksgiving. Another controversy is if the first Thanksgiving actually happened. We only have one written account of that feast actually happening. So several people don't believe it actually happened at all, because if it was such a momentous occasion, people would have written about it, and only one did. The bigger controversy is of the first Thanksgiving. The retelling of it seemingly glosses over the brutality Native Americans suffered through from European colonists. And so several view it as not a day of Thanksgiving, but celebrating the genocide of the Native Americans. So many people believe this that they boycott Thanksgiving, not even celebrating it, not even acknowledging it. To try and appease both sides and keep Thanksgiving intact, the day after Thanksgiving is now known as Native American Heritage Day.
My biggest issue with Thanksgiving is that it is advertised as a day of thanks. To get together with family and friends and enjoy everything that you have together with one another. And then, a few hours later, you're elbows deep battling some other person for a TV, a video game, clothes. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting and makes people look like hypocrites. Side note, if anybody wants to get me a Black Friday awesome deal on a TV, hook me up. I mean, you can't even wait a full day of celebrating what you're grateful for before getting violent towards another person on something so trivial. Again, if you want to get me that TV. Heck yeah.
Another interesting controversy is that the first Thanksgiving wasn't actually the first Thanksgiving. In 1565, Pedro Menendez de Avila invited the Timucua tribe to celebrate his arrival to the New World safely. This was through a feast and thanking God for his safety. And again, on December 4th, 1619, British settlers celebrated Thanksgiving upon their arrival. And really, Thanksgiving is a holiday that dates back to ancient times and traditions. So those who say the first Thanksgiving wasn't the first Thanksgiving is actually right. It's usually held after times of harvest, especially more bountiful ones. Those celebrating Thanksgiving usually praise a higher power for their luck and prosperity. And this dates all the way back to Egyptian, Greek, Roman, and even Jewish traditions and cultures. Today, it is more of a showing of thanks to those at the table as well as what's on it. So what do you think, lore lovers? Did you know the histories and controversies about Thanksgiving? What are you thankful for? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell notification icon to be alerted for when the next video becomes available. And don't forget to share this video so others can learn the history of this food-filled holiday. And until next time, lore lovers, happy Thanksgiving!
Don't forget to let us know if you're celebrating Thanksgiving too. Happy Thanksgiving, lore lovers.